Yeah, we're talking about the 2026 recruiting cycle and guys that Oklahoma is in on, including a 4-star wide receiver, in-state prospect for Oklahoma that realistically, if they land their quarterback in Darian Coleman, which is apparently the guy they might want, but just remember, Jaden O'Neal is lurking out there as well. You land your 2026 quarterback, you potentially get a wide receiver to maybe jump on board with you as well. And we got to talk about it today. We got to break it down. We got to look at the film of 4-star wide receiver Mason James here in Norman, Oklahoma, out of Norman North High School. But before we do that, guys, I need to hear from y'all. So join the discussion, jump down in the comments below, and give me your thoughts on whether or not you think Oklahoma is going to be able to get a hot start and land Mason James, just like maybe they did in the 2025 cycle where you got Kevin Sperry and you kind of saw wide receivers jump on board right after. But Mason James is a 5'11", 6 foot, depending on what site you look at. The measurables might be a little different, but let's just say 6 foot to be safe. Wide receiver, 160 pounds, out of Norman North High School in Norman, Oklahoma. Now, here's the deal. It's not going to be the flashy height that Oklahoma has gotten with some other wide receivers in others classes. But Mason James, when you look at his offer sheet, 19 total offers. He's got offers from elite schools: Oregon, Miami, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Michigan. Out of the 19 total offers, 16 of those schools are Power 4 schools. I want you to keep that in mind. 16 out of the 19 schools that have offered him are Power 4 schools. So a lot of these schools actually believe that Mason James is an athlete that they think can produce for them at a high level. And when you watch this film, which I'm going to pull up for you guys here so that you guys can look at this a little bit while we talk through Mason James and I give you guys an update on his recruitment. But one of the things you notice is Mason James isn't going to kill you with just this immediately breakaway speed, but he can get up there. And by the way, that was an amazing one-handed grab, but he can get up there and he can fight for the ball and he's a come down for it, right? He has a knack for being able to do that, but he is able to make defenders miss. He gets off that hash mark, whether it's a too high safety look or whatever. He gets past those defenders, and a 4.5 40 is what they have him listed on in terms of HUDL for his 40-yard dash. That's not terrible. And honestly, as a sophomore, he has a lot of room to develop that. I did get a chance to follow up with Mason James, though, a little bit about his recruitment. And we ended up updating a little bit of his measurables where the 100-meter dash, he did a 10.86. He cleaned 225, squatted 335. So Mason James is an absolute athlete that Emmett Jones and the Oklahoma Sooners and him being an in-state prospect are going to want on this team. But following up with Mason James and kind of asking him about his recruitment, why Oklahoma? Like, why would you want to come here? And it was interesting to find out some of these answers for a guy that lives literally right down the road and has been to Oklahoma many times. So, like I just said, right? Been here many times. He doesn't have an exact number. He's been there kind of a lot. But he had a good time on his last visit. That's important, right? So I got a chance to talk to him about his relationship with Emmett Jones and get a better understanding how that is progressing. And he says, my relationship with Coach Jones is just really strong. I feel like we get closer each time I see him. And then asking Mason about living in Norman, right? Going to Norman North, what he's looking for in a school and, how he looks at Oklahoma. Because at the end of the day, it's like a kid in Norman you would expect would look at Oklahoma as a dream school. Well, following up with him on that, he said, yes, OU is a dream school, and I feel very honored that they were the first school to offer me. I looked for a very well-built program and also a family environment and coaches that care about my life outside of football and care about me as a person and also my education. And so when you hear these things, it really starts to sound like, okay, like Oklahoma's fitting the build here. And so you look at the 2026 cycle and all of the guys that are in this class that Oklahoma could go after. We talked about it with Colton Yarborough, right? Oklahoma might not actually really land Colton. They might not even really pursue him. But you've got Caden Jones, the 4-star running back out of Jenks, Oklahoma. Taj Overton, the 4-star defensive lineman out of Owasso. And then you got Mason James sitting as the number 4 prospect in the state of Oklahoma at the number 32, the wide receiver, and the 218th ranked player in the country. And then right behind him, you've got Riley Kester, the inside offensive lineman out of Sand Springs, Oklahoma. So we looked at 25 and said, man, this is a pretty deep class for Oklahoma, or just OKPREPS kids in general. And I think it's going to be a similar situation in 2026. And in fact, you might have more top-end kids that could end up going and playing for several elite schools, but Oklahoma will have a shot at every single one of them. So Mason James, the 6-foot, 172-pound wide receiver out of Norman North High School in Norman, Oklahoma, as you guys can see here from his film, an elite prospect that I think Oklahoma is going to continue to pursue pretty heavily. And let's be honest, guys, if this is anything like it was when Oklahoma landed Kevin Sperry, you do not expect this recruitment to last potentially very long if Oklahoma gets their quarterback locked up here in the next couple months. And that's going to be the start of now having, 3 commits. And by the time the 2026 cycle starts, Oklahoma could have probably 5 commits in the 2026 class. That's how elite that class is. So if you guys have not already, go ahead, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and join the discussion below.